I've just found out that during World War II, Poland sent their declaration of war to Japan because they were on opposite sides. But Japan refused it? Okay, I'm confused, so let's find out a little bit more in today's video. Dzień dobry, let's go.
When you make a formal declaration of war, the last thing you expect is for it to be rejected. But this is what happened to Poland during World War II when its government in exile declared war on Japan. The Japanese refused to accept this declaration as valid and thus promptly ignored it. Which raises a pretty obvious question.
Why?
Why did Japan refuse to acknowledge that Poland was at war with it? So, during the interwar period, Japan and Poland had very good relations. This was due to their mutual dislike of the Soviet Union, and the two nations cooperated deeply in conducting espionage within the USSR.
Well, I didn't even realise that there was even a link between Poland and Japan. I didn't, they're quite far away on the world scale of things. Their cultures are, well, a lot different. So I never realised that those two countries... Now, I know this video is a simplified version, obviously. It's a short animated documentary, but it will tell, hopefully, the gist of things without getting into stupid amounts of detail. But I never knew there was any form of link between, Japan and Poland. Throughout history, there's countries that have special relations, like the UK and US for some reason. There are different countries that are friends, and it's quite obvious why they're friends. A lot of the Scandinavian countries, they work together, and that makes sense. But Poland and Japan. Okay, let's see what else happened.
Japanese listening stations were located within Poland, and Polish spies were smuggled in and out of the USSR via the vast Japanese puppet state of Manchukuo. However, as you all know, the Japanese allied with the Germans during the Second World War, and its ally conquered Poland. The Japanese deeply disapproved of this, in part because their close ally had just been wiped out, but also because Germany had done this in tandem with the USSR, which the Japanese government viewed as its greatest threat. That said, there wasn't anything that it could do about the destruction of Poland, and so the Japanese simply said nothing. At least publicly. Privately, Japan supported the Polish government in London, and the two continued to spy on the USSR together. Of course, at this point, Japan wasn't at war with the Western powers. But when this changed in 1941, the Polish government in exile declared war on Japan like their hosts. So the Japanese response was simple. No, we're not actually at war.
I think Japan, in times of war, you have to pick a side. And you have to pick a side on who your country's beliefs sort of align most with, and also who you think is going to win as well, right? Because there's no... Look, I appreciate you should always do it for the moral side of things, but if you join a side that you think is probably going to lose even with your help, then that's not the right thing for your people. So I don't know enough about the Japan joining the war with Germany, but it's putting this in a light of it was a tough decision that actually they didn't necessarily agree with everything the Germans did, and maybe they didn't know to what extent the Germans were doing things. But obviously they had this relationship with Poland that they didn't agree, that Germany were basically trying to wipe them off the face of the earth. But they clearly knew the danger of speaking out against Germany, and then what became the Soviets and later on and things like that. And yeah, probably a tricky position for them to be in.
Main justification was that the Polish government in exile wasn't free to do as it chose, and was at this point a client of the British acting under immense pressure from the Americans. Thus, as far as the Japanese were concerned, the Polish didn't really want to declare war on their old allies, and friends don't let friends declare war on friends against their will. Of course, the Japanese also viewed countries like Australia, New Zealand, India and Canada in the same light, but they accepted their declarations of war. And the reason for that was proximity. Poland was half a world away and unable to actually do anything, whereas the others could project forces near enough to Japan to cause a potential issue. Also, they sat where Japan wanted to expand her empire. Another issue was that whilst they wished to continue working with the Polish in order to spy on the USSR, they didn't want to upset their German allies too much. And acknowledging the declaration of war would also be acknowledging that a Poland still existed. So after the ignored declaration of war, what happened? Well, nothing. The Polish couldn't do anything against Japan because they had much more pressing issues closer to home. And when Japan surrendered to the Allies, Poland wasn't at the ceremony. This was because during negotiations with the USSR, the Western Allies had agreed to stop recognising the Polish government in exile as legitimate. And so after this, when normal relations were restored between Japan and the Allies in 1951, Poland's representative was the head of the Polish People's Republic, a communist state which Japan was not a fan of, and the two held no formal relations until 1957. This was when Japan acknowledged communist rule there as legitimate, and also sort of maybe made peace despite not really ever having been to war, just to sort of get things over with.
A fantastic channel, honestly. They do some really good stuff, and it's meant to be bite-sized, right? So there's things there that I didn't actually realise. So, like I said, I didn't realise at how close Japan and Poland were in a relationship before World War II. And then it does make me think, like I said, about how Japan, they probably had tricky decisions to make. Yes, I think they clearly believed the Germans were going to win the war. That obviously didn't work. So, like I said, you've got to pick a side if you're going to join a war. And you don't want to pick a side that you think is going to lose. And clearly they thought the Germans were going to win. But then, they were friends with the Poles who thought, screw you, you are joining the Germans. And we know the relationship, or the previous relationship at least, between Poles and the Germans. It's not been healthy for years, and then the Soviets as well come into the mix. A real mess. I would like to know what the relationship is like now between Poland and Japan. If you're Polish, what do you think of the Japanese? Do you realise that there was, or even is, a relationship, a possible working relationship between the two countries? It just seems strange because, like I said, they're not exactly close. You can understand, for example, why the United Kingdom and Australia have a relationship, because that was the United Kingdom's penal colony, and that's where we sent all the convicts and things. So you can understand that. But what is the link? Why, other than, the Soviets, why did Poland and Japan work pretty closely together before World War II? It leaves me with a few questions, but did answer, I suppose. Well, I said answered some questions. It told me some things I never knew about. So there we go. I wonder if you knew about this. Did you know about the close relationship between Poland and Japan? Let me know down in the comments. An interesting one for you today. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Papa.